Well, hello there. Let's jump right in to the recipe that we're gonna make today. And this is another recipe that is great when you're cooking for two. Not gonna have a ton of leftovers to worry about. And if you or your husband or your spouse is a hearty eater, then I think we'll be good. Okay, so what we're gonna do in this recipe is we're gonna do a balsamic glazed sirloin steak with some onions, and we're gonna serve that over some mashed sweet potatoes. And that might sound a little bit weird, but that combination with the balsamic glaze on the meat mixed in with that natural sweetness of the sweet potato, wow, it is delicious, okay? So the first thing that we're gonna do is we are going to slice this onion up. And I don't know about you, but I really don't mind. A lot of people really get tore up about having to do onions, slice onions and cut them, but I don't know if you've noticed much with me. I don't seem to tear up a lot with my onions. Every now and then I will, but I think the key to that is I am a big fan of Vidalia onions. I love sweet onions. And some onions, you know, people call the purple onions sweet. To me, they are so strong. And those onions, usually, yes, I'll tear up. But these Vidalia onions, that's usually, no matter what the recipe calls for, I usually will pick these onions because you can slice them and they don't make you cry for the most part. Every now and then you'll get a strong one and, you know, it might make you tear up a little bit, but for the most part, they're really good and mild, but they have a good flavor, but they're not just that real strong onion flavor. And we're gonna need about 1/2 cup, and I think that one onion is gonna do it. So I'm gonna put this up on my board here, and we're gonna break this up, and we are gonna add this into the bowl. I've got my onions in the bowl, all right? Make sure they're all broken up, and now I'm going to add, if you like balsamic vinegar, then you feel free, you go ahead and do about a full 1/4 cup. But I have to be careful with balsamic vinegar because Kyle is not a big, you know, sour fan. He can't do sour. And balsamic vinegar, even though as you cook it, it does bring a sweetness to the dish, but at the same time, it's still vinegar. So I have to be really careful because if I add too much, he does not like it. So if you don't have a problem with that, you go ahead and do the full 1/4 cup. I've got some Worcestershire sauce in here. I'm gonna add that. And then the spices that I have in here is I have some espresso powder, okay? That adds such a depth to the flavor. We've got some ancho chili powders for a little bit of heat, a little bit of spice. And then I also have just a tad bit of allspice. I'm not a big fan of allspice just because I don't really like cloves, and cloves are definitely in allspice. But in something like this, I think, you know, I need to go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and add it because all the other flavors are gonna, you know, kind of mask that clove. So I'm just gonna take this and just kind of give this a little stir. We just kind of want to get our onions covered good with this little marinade. We have our sirloin. I have here a thin sliced sirloin steak, a sirloin tip steak. You can just get a regular, you know, thick sirloin steak, whatever you would like. But I just a lot of times like to do on meals like this, I like to do the thinner cuts because they cook so much easier and quicker. And so I always, when I open up my meat, I always wash it and dry it off with paper towels. I know maybe that's weird, but it's just a thing with me. So I've washed this and I've patted it dry. And now I'm gonna take about 2 tablespoons of my liquid, okay? And I'm just gonna pour that on there. 2 tablespoons of this marinade here. And I'm gonna kind of lift it up, put a little bit inside there. Now, it doesn't take much, but you're gonna take that liquid marinade and you're gonna turn this over and you're gonna just kind of massage it in really good. Make sure that you get that marinade all through your meat, Actually, I'm gonna add just a tad bit more to this underside. Okay, let's rub that in good. Now, and we are going to let this just kind of sit and marinate. You don't want to add too much with this balsamic vinegar because it is strong, okay? I know that probably seems like not a ton of marinade, but it really is good. And then we're gonna add some to it later too. So we're gonna let that sit for about 15 minutes and then we'll come back to it. Okay, I have 3 sweet potatoes here. And what we're gonna do is we're actually going to just, I've washed these potatoes really good, scrubbed them with a brush, and we're gonna peel them later, but I just find that it's easier. We're gonna turn our, let's get this going first. I find that it's easier to go ahead and boil them like this, and then after we get them out of the water and they've cooled, then I can just peel them and smash them up. So I've got 3 sweet potatoes. I'm gonna go ahead and add to this pot of water. We are going to just let this come to a boil, and we're gonna do it kind of like what you do, you know, when you make mashed potatoes, but we're not gonna let these boil. You wanna watch them close because you don't want them to get too soft. But just a little bit, you know, fork tender, and that should be good. So we're just gonna let that go, and we'll pull them out as soon as they get ready. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're going to add some olive oil to our skillet. You want a non-stick skillet, and we're gonna let that heat up a little bit. And then we are taking our sirloin that we've let marinate for about 15 minutes or so, 15, 30 minutes, depends on how fast you want this. If you're in a big hurry or you're starving. And actually, I am going to add some salt and pepper to this. I'm gonna add a little bit of garlic powder. Garlic powder makes everything taste better in my books. Let's turn this over. Do this back side first. Garlic powder. And we're gonna add some salt and pepper because we haven't added that yet. Okay, we are gonna put this in our skillet. Okay, and now I'm gonna add, I already added garlic powder to that side. I'm gonna add some salt and pepper to this side. Now we're gonna let this cook. This is not gonna really take long. We're gonna let this cook for about probably 5 minutes on each side. Now that is for meat kind of the way that we like it. We're more medium rare people, especially when we're at home. We normally don't order medium rare out, but if we're home, we definitely like the more medium rare. Now, if you like yours more done, then by all means, you just cook it a little bit longer. You know, just try it. You can cook it for 5 minutes on each side, and it also depends on how thick your meat is. So you just kind of have to be your own judge. You know, watch it. You can tell, if you'll watch the meat, you can tell as it browns how done it's getting. So if it starts to look, you know, like that pink is going away, then you might want to take it off the burner and, you know, just give it a little bitty slice to get in there and see if it's where you want it yet. We'll just let that cook a little bit and work on some other stuff while that's cooking. Okay, so our sirloin tip is just about ready. So we're gonna take it off, put this on the pan. Now, while we have all of this goodness going in this skillet, all these little bits, those golden bits, that is just goodness right there. So we're gonna add a little bit of oil. Then we're gonna take the rest of the marinade that we had and those onions that have been sitting in that marinade all this time. And we are going to let these cook for just a little bit. We'll let these onions soak up all the good bits that are down in there, all that flavor. We want to let it cook just long enough where those onions get a little bit tender. We don't want them really soft, you know, mushy, but we want them a little tender. and your balsamic vinegar, this marinade is going to reduce some. Okay, as you can see, our meat is finished, and I'm gonna go ahead, it's rested for just a little bit, and I'm gonna go ahead and just cut this into little strips, and you'll see this sirloin was quite a bit thinner than I thought when I bought it. So it's really good and tender, but it actually is a little bit more done than what Kyle and I like it. That's kind of like well done, which will still be good, but we do like it a little bit more on the rare side. So just keep that in mind. It's a good lesson. When you, like I said, it all depends on the thickness of your meat. And this ended up being really a lot thinner than what I thought when I bought it, but that's okay. You know what? That's what I love about cooking, is you just do the best you can with what you have. And so this is gonna be delicious, and we're just gonna probably eat more pieces of it than we would if it was thicker. Like I said, it's still really tender and it tastes great. I've already tasted it. So that's what's important, tenderness and taste. Okay, so I got the sweet potatoes, I drained all the water off, and I went ahead and peeled them, okay? And so now you can see they're steaming, and I'm just gonna cut them up just a little bit, throw them in this bowl, because then we're gonna mash them. So I'm just gonna cut them into chunks. We are going to just take a potato masher, whatever you call it. If you have one of these, if you don't, you can just take a spoon, you know, the back of a spoon, a big spoon will do the same thing. But this right here, this is very near and dear to my heart, because this actually was my mother and dad's. They got this when they got married. This was my mom's potato masher, and she used it for years and years and years. And then she actually, I've had it for a pretty good while. She gave it to me. But wow, this is really old and it still works great. All right, so what we're gonna do is we have our sweet potatoes in here, about a pound, a little bit more than a pound, and we're gonna add in some almond milk. And this, you just kind of want to add a little bit and smash it and kind of see how it goes. And then for a little bit of sweetness, I'm going to add in some date syrup, okay? You can omit this step. You can add maple syrup. You can add coconut sugar. You know what? You can just, whatever you would like. I told you before, I throw cinnamon everywhere I can throw it. Here's a place I can throw it, so we're gonna throw some cinnamon in there. Quite a bit. I love cinnamon and sweet potato. Oh my gosh, and then the syrup, the date syrup, wow. So let's start mashing this up. Now, because you don't want these fine like you would regular mashed potatoes. This is kind of more of a rustic dish. So that's why we're not using the mixer. We could use the mixer and just do these, you know, like regular mashed potatoes. But we want them a little bit chunky. Set that there, and we're gonna stir this up. So I added my meat back into our balsamic mixture with our onions. We're gonna just kind of toss that around a little bit. Let everything get really good and coated. Okay, now to fix our plates, okay? Take some of your beautiful mashed potatoes. Kind of want to smear them a little bit on your plate. Voila! Look how beautiful that is. A perfect, here we go, a perfect dinner for two.